gar paragraph th, and Goeth redirect here. See Goeth for a discussion of this and related surnames. Amon Leopold Göth paragraph the pronounced, e equal or more than et, was an Austrian SS-Hauptsturmführer ⅓ and the commandant of the Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp in Płaszów in German-occupied Poland during World War II. He was tried as a war criminal after the war by the Supreme National Tribunal of Poland at Kraków and was found guilty of personally ordering the imprisonment, torture, and extermination of individuals and groups of people. He was also convicted of homicide, the first such conviction at a war crimes trial, for personally killing, maiming and torturing a substantial, albeit unidentified number of people. He was executed by hanging not far from the former site of the Płaszów camp. The film Schindler's List depicts his practice of shooting camp internees. Early life and career. Gar paragraph th was born on December 11, 1908 in Vienna, then the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, to a family in the book publishing industry. Goeth joined a Nazi youth group at age 17 and was a member of the anti-Semitic nationalist paramilitary group ๊ɡøːt from 1927 to 1930. He dropped his membership to join the Austrian branch of the Nazi Party, being assigned the party membership number 510,764 in September 1930. Goeth joined the Austrian SS in 1930 and was appointed an SS man with the SS number 43,673. Goeth served with the SS Tribunal and Sturmleibgarde in Vienna until January 1933, when he was promoted to serve as adjutant and platoon leader of the 52nd SS Standard, a regimental-sized unit. He was soon promoted to SS Scharfe ⅓. He fled to Germany when his illegal activities, including obtaining explosives for the Nazi Party, made him a wanted man. The Austrian Nazi Party was declared illegal in Austria on June 19, 1933, so they set up operations in exile in Munich. From this base, Goeth smuggled radios and weapons into Austria and acted as a courier for the SS. He was arrested in October 1933 by the Austrian authorities but was released for lack of evidence in December 1933. He was again detained after the assassination of Austrian Chancellor Albert Dollfuss in a failed Nazi coup attempt in July 1934. He escaped custody and fled to the SS training facility at Dachau, next to the infamous Dachau concentration camp. He temporarily quit the SS and Nazi Party activities until 1937 and lived in Munich while trying to help his parents to develop their publishing business. He married on the recommendation of his parents, but was divorced after only a few months. Goeth returned to Vienna shortly after the Anschluss in 1938 and resumed his party activities. He married Annie Geiger in a civil SS ceremony on October 23, 1938. The couple had 3 children, Peter, born in 1939, who died of diphtheria at age 7 months, Werner, born in 1940, and a daughter, Ingeborg, born in 1941. The couple maintained a permanent home in Vienna throughout World War II. Initially assigned to 89th SS Standard, Goeth was transferred to the 1st SS Sturmbahn of the 11th SS Standard at the start of the war and was promoted to SS Oberstscharfe ⅓ in early 1941. He soon gained a reputation as a seasoned administrator in the Nazi efforts to isolate and relocate the Jewish population of Europe as an Einsatzführer ⅓ and financial officer for the Reichskommissariat für die Verteidigung deutschen Volkstums. He was commissioned to the rank of SS Untersturmführer ⅓ on July 14, 1941. He was transferred to Lublin in the summer of 1942, where he joined the staff of SS Brigadeführer ⅓ Dialoglabonik, the SS and police leader of the Kraków area, as part of Operation Reinhard, the code name given to the establishment of the 3 extermination camps at Beangstrom ⅓, Soberberg and Splinka. Nothing is known of his activities in the 6 months he served with Operation Reinhard. Participants were sworn to secrecy. But according to the transcripts of his later trial, Goeth was responsible for rounding up and transporting victims to these camps to be killed. Płaszów, Goeth was assigned to the SS Toting Kopfverbekannung NDE. His first assignment, starting on February 11, 1943, was to oversee the construction of the Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp, which he was to command. The camp took 1 month to construct using forced labor. On March 13, 1943, the Jewish ghetto of Kraków was liquidated and those still fit for work were sent to the new camp at Kraków. Several thousand not deemed fit for work were sent to extermination camps and killed. Hundreds more were killed on the streets by the Nazis as they cleared out the ghetto. On September 3, 1943, in addition to his duties at Kraków, Goeth was the officer in charge of the liquidation of the ghetto at Kraków, which had been home to 25,000 Jews at the start of World War II. By the time the ghetto was liquidated, 8,000 Jews remained. They were loaded on a train to Auschwitz concentration camp, but less than half survived the journey. Most of the survivors were deemed unsuitable for forced labor and were killed immediately on their arrival at Auschwitz. According to testimony of several witnesses as recorded in his 1946 indictment for war crimes, Goeth personally shot between 30 and 90 women and children during the liquidation of the ghetto. Goeth was also the officer in charge of the liquidation of Sni concentration camp, which interned 4,000 Jewish and 1,500 Polish slave laborers. Evidence presented at Goeth's trial indicates he delegated this task to a subordinate, SS-Hauptsturmführer Joseph Ziemke, who was sent to assist camp commandant SS-Hauptsturmführer Hans Kellermann with mass executions. Between September 21, 1943 and 3 February 1944 the camp was gradually liquidated. Around 1,000 of the victims were taken to the nearby forest and shot, and the remainder were sent to Auschwitz, where most were gassed immediately on arrival. By April 1944, Goeth had been promoted to the rank of SS-Hauptsturmführer, having received a double promotion, skipping the rank of SS-Obersturmführer. He was also appointed a reserve officer of the Waffen-SS. In early 1944 the status of the Kraków-Płaszów labor camp changed to a permanent concentration camp under the direct authority of the SS-Wirtschaftsverwaltungshauptamt. Meetke Pemper testified at the trial that it was during the earlier period that Goeth committed most of the random and brutal killings for which he became notorious. Concentration camps were more closely monitored by the SS than labor camps, so conditions improved slightly when the designation was changed. The camp housed about 2,000 inmates when it opened. At its peak of operations in 1944, a staff of 636 guards oversaw 25,000 permanent inmates, and an additional 150,000 people passed through the camp in its role as a transit camp. Goeth personally murdered prisoners on a daily basis. His 2 dogs, Rolf and Rolf, were trained to tear inmates to death. He shot people from the window of his office if they appeared to be moving too slowly or resting in the yard. He shot to death a Jewish cook because the soup was too hot. He brutally mistreated his 2 maids, Helen Jonas Rosenzweig and Helen Hirsch, who were in constant daily fear for their lives, as were all the inmates. As a survivor I can tell you that we are all traumatized people. Never would I, never, believe that any human being would be capable of such horror, of such atrocities. When we saw him from a distance, everybody was hiding, in latrines, wherever they could hide. I can't tell you how people feared him. Poldek Fufberg, another Schindler Jud, said, "When you saw Goeth, you saw death." Yet Goeth spared the life of Jewish prisoner Natalia Hubler and that of her sister, after hearing her play a nocturne by Chopin on the piano the day after she arrived at the Płaszów camp. Goeth believed if one member of a work team escaped or committed some infraction, the entire team must be punished. On one occasion he ordered every second member of a work detail should be shot because one of the party had escaped. On another occasion he personally shot every 5th member of a crew because one had not returned to the camp. The main execution site at Płaszów was Ħoġowa Rka, a large hill that was used for mass killings and executions. Pemper testified that 8,000 to 12,000 people were murdered at Płaszów. Dismissal and capture. On September 13, 1944, Goeth was relieved of his position and charged by the SS with theft of Jewish property, failure to provide adequate food to the prisoners under his charge, violation of concentration camp regulations regarding the treatment and punishment of prisoners, and allowing unauthorized access to camp personnel records by prisoners and non-commissioned officers. Administration of the camp at Kraków-Płaszów was turned over to SS-Hauptsturmführer 1/4 Rear Arnold Bar 1/4 Scher. Goeth was scheduled for an appearance before SS Judge Georg Konrad Morgan, but due to the progress of World War II and Germany's looming defeat, the charges against him were dropped in early 1945. SS doctors diagnosed Goeth as suffering from mental illness and he was committed to a mental institution in Bad Tar Paragraph LZ, where he was arrested by the United States military in May 1945. Trial and execution. After the war, Goeth was extradited to Poland, where he was tried by the Supreme National Tribunal of Poland in Kraków-Płaszów between August 27 and September 5, 1946. Goeth was found guilty of membership in the Nazi Party and personally ordering the imprisonment, torture, and extermination of individuals and groups of people. He was also convicted of homicide, the first such conviction at a war crimes trial, for personally killing, maiming and torturing a substantial, albeit unidentified number of people. He was sentenced to death and was hanged on September 13, 1946 at the Montelupich prison in Kraków-Płaszów, not far from the site of the Kraków-Płaszów camp. Goeth's last words were "Hail Hitler!" The body was cremated and the ashes thrown in the Vistula River. Family. In addition to his 2 marriages, Goeth had a 2-year relationship with Ruth Irene Calder, a beautician and aspiring actress originally from Breslau. Calder first met Goeth in 1942 or early 1943, when she worked as a secretary at Oskar Schindler's Enamware factory in Kraków-Płaszów. She soon moved in with Goeth and the two had an affair. She took Goeth's name shortly after his death. Goeth's last child was a daughter, Monika Hertwig, whom he had by Calder. Monika was born in November 1945 in Bad Tar Paragraph LZ. In media and culture, Schindler's List, Goeth's actions at Kraków-Płaszów labor camp became internationally known through his depiction by British actor Ralph Fiennes in the 1993 film Schindler's List. In a subsequent interview, Fiennes recalled, "People believe that their unregistered trademark they got to do a job, their unregistered trademark they got to take on an ideology, that their unregistered trademark they got a life to lead. Their unregistered trademark they got to survive, a job to do, eat a unregistered trademark's every day inch by inch, little compromises, little ways of telling yourself this is how you should lead your life and suddenly then these things can happen. I mean, I could make a judgment myself privately, this is a terrible, evil, horrific man. But the job was to portray the man, the human being. Theory a unregistered trademark essay sort of banality, that everydayness, that I think was important. And it was in the screenplay. In fact, one of the first scenes with Oskar Schindler, with Liam Neeson, was a scene where a unregistered trademark saying, "You don't unregistered trademark T understand how hard it is, I have to order so many so many meters of barbed wire and so many fencing posts and I have to get so many people from A to B. And, hey unregistered trademark sort of letting off steam about the difficulties of the job." Fiennes won a BAFTA award for Best Supporting Actor for his role and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. His portrayal ranked 15th on American Film Institute's list of the top 50 film villains of all time. He ranks as the highest non-fiction villain. When Kraków-Płaszów survivor Marla Fufberg was introduced to Fiennes on the set of the film, she began to shake uncontrollably, as Fiennes, costumed in full SS dress uniform, reminded her of the real Amon Goeth. Monika Hertwig. In 2002, Goeth's daughter Monika Hertwig published her memoirs under the title Ik moet doch mijn vader lieben, oder? Hertwig described the subsequent life of her mother, Ruth Calder Goeth, who unconditionally glorified her fiancé copyright until confronted with his role in the Holocaust. Ruth committed suicide in 1983, shortly after giving an interview in John Blair's documentary Schindler. Hertwig's experiences in dealing with her father's crimes are detailed in Inheritance, a 2006 documentary directed by James Moll. Appearing in the documentary is Helen Jonas Rosenzweig, one of Goeth's former housemaids. The documentary details the meeting of the two women at the Płaszów memorial site in Poland. Hertwig had requested the meeting, but Jonas Rosenzweig was hesitant because her memories of Goeth and the concentration camp were so traumatic. She eventually agreed after Hertwig wrote to her, "We have to do it for the murdered people." Jonas felt touched by this sentiment and agreed to meet her. In a subsequent interview, Jonas Rosenzweig recalled, "It's hard for me to be with her because she reminds me a lot of, you know her. She's tall, she has certain features. And I hated him so. But she is a victim. And I think it's important because she is willing to tell the story in Germany. She told me people don't want to know, they want to go on with their lives. And I think it's very important because there's a lot of children of perpetrators, and I think she's a brave person to go on talking about it, because it's difficult. And I feel for Monika. I am a mother, I have children. And she is affected by the fact that her father was a perpetrator. But my children are also affected by it. And that's why we both came here. The world has to know, to prevent something like this from happening again." Hertwig also appeared in a documentary called Hitler's Children, directed and produced by Chinook Ze'evi, an Israeli documentary filmmaker. In the documentary, Hertwig and other close relatives of infamous Nazi leaders describe their feelings, relationships, and memories of their relatives. Jennifer Teague, the daughter of Monika Hertwig and a Nigerian man, discovered that Goeth was her grandfather through Hertwig's 2002 memoirs. She addressed her coming to terms with her origins in a 2013 book, Amon. Mein Groevater Haarcurrency Tte mich ausgossen. Summary of SS career, SS number, 43673, Nazi Party number, 510764, primary positions, Lager Commandant, Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp, Waffen SS service, SS-Hauptsturmführer der Reserve, dates of rank, awards, and Schloss Medal, German sports badge, SS Julichte, honor chevron for the Old Guard. At the time of his capture by American forces, Goeth claimed to have been recently promoted to the rank of Sturmbannführer 1/4, a claim not supported in his SS service record. Nonetheless, several American interrogation transcripts list him as SS Major Goeth. SS Obersturmbannführer 1/4 Rudolf H. Paragraph SS, Commandant of Auschwitz concentration camp, supported the claim at his own trial when he testified that Goeth was a major in the concentration camp service. Due to poor record-keeping at the end of the war, it is possible that Goeth was promoted. Most historical accounts simply list his rank as that of Hauptsturmführer 1/4. Notes. Citations. References. Further reading, Sasliner, Johannes. Der Todesdienstmeister aus Wien. Wien, Styria Verlag. ISBN A978-3-222-13233-9. External links, The Trial of Amon Goeth, an interview with Monika Goeth Hertwig on YouTube.